Today on For the Record.
Hoarding disorder is a problem everywhere, really.
It's a sometimes hidden problem, hoarding.
The amount of isolation that's prevalent among people with self-isolation. Because a lot of people think that they are not aware of their situation.
Plus the challenges that first responders can face when they're called to a hoarding situation.
It's a bigger struggle because you have to, often they're packed in a little corner of the home that they live in.
And the help that's available for people who need it. For the Record starts right now. Welcome to For the Record. I'm Michelle Wright. This morning is the first of an important two-part edition of our show, looking at the issue of hoarding in the Pittsburgh area. The American Psychiatric Association says a little more than 2.5% of the adult population suffers from hoarding disorder. That means here in our region, this is likely happening in thousands of our neighbors' homes. But there is help. Let me take you to my first interview with Matt Williams and Eva Williams, both of the group Fight the Blight, based out of Westmoreland County. My first question, just how big of an issue is hoarding in Western Pennsylvania?
Hoarding disorder is a problem everywhere, really. Some statistics that I've seen recently indicate that between 2 and 6% of all people are affected to some degree by hoarding disorder. And the 6% is typically on the more weighted toward the elderly. For whatever reason, hoarding typically manifests earlier in life. There are signs of it that begin to develop even in the 20s, but they continue to develop and often show themselves at their fullest, with the elderly. So it's an issue everywhere.
So you're saying a lot of our viewers are going to either have a disorder themselves or know someone, a family member or a friend that has this. Can you describe exactly when it becomes a disorder? It's not just something that you're keeping too much stuff around the house, it becomes a problem.
A lot of it's generational. We've come to learn that it started with way back with grandparents, and a lot with the depression, we hear that a lot, that they learned not to dispose of anything. If there was any use whatsoever for something, then they were to keep it and use it. And that's continued on. I hear a lot of that. I mean, even with paper towel rolls, they'll find uses.
And to add to that, with it becoming a disorder, it's really defined by when you reach a point that it's interfering with your home and its usability, and when you're not able to use your home as it's intended, and you're acquiring items that you don't necessarily have a need or use for, or a place to store them, it really starts to become an issue and a disorder.
And in reading about your cause, Fight the Blight, I've seen that some of the things that people save might not make a lot of sense to other people. Can you describe a little bit about what some of the things are that you've seen?
Do you want well, we have a lady who she lives alone, and she obsessively buys cookbooks, but she does not cook. So as working through her issues and the support group and talking it out, she discovered a couple of weeks ago that her mom and her cooked together, but her mom passed away probably around 35 years ago. So she still obsessively collects these cookbooks, even though she doesn't cook in them, because she's afraid she will forget her mother if she stops buying cookbooks. So she had this epiphany where she decided she was going to give up these cookbooks because they took up so much room in her house. And she was so excited. She came in, she said, "I didn't forget my mother." Yeah. And I said, "Of course." And she said, "That's why I was collecting cookbooks." So it's different with everything. Cookbooks, paperweights.
Papers themselves.
Papers,
Yeah.
Mail.
Yeah.
Mail's a big one. The what we would call junk mail, they're afraid it's important. And there's so, I mean, you know how much junk mail we get, and they collect it so they can go through every piece of it.
And again, that really prohibits living in their home comfortably.
Oh, most definitely.
It's also a safety issue. I know we've covered a lot of situations of fires or various problems in homes, and firefighters struggle.
It really is. First responders have a lot of issue going into a situation like that where there's not clear pathways to maybe where the health emergency has occurred in a bedroom or whatever the case may be. There's fire hazards. I've seen a good bit of that firsthand when you have things that are stacked up against the walls or covering the windows or the doors. It definitely creates a hazard, and I've seen loose outlets that were covered by papers and various things. So yeah, that's certainly an issue.
Are they able to hide it from their friends and family that they are living in this kind of situation?
To a degree,
Yeah,
I think that it typically does start that way, and what we've learned is the amount of isolation that's prevalent among people with self-isolation, because a lot of people think that they are not aware of their situation, but we found that they're very aware.
And they're embarrassed?
Oh,
they know they're supposed to hide it then.
They're embarrassed, and they just live incredibly isolated lives. And that's what's so great about this support group, though, because now they're coming in and they're meeting other people who also live incredibly isolated lives. And now they don't have to be that way anymore because they have friends. Now they have people, they have a support group now that can help them overcome this.
Yeah,
I want to talk about the support group, but I want to start with maybe people watching this at home. What are some of the first signs that you might have a problem?
Really, as I said before, difficulty discarding items that they don't have a use for or a place to store them. Kind of compulsively acquiring items at a high rate. There's certainly a lot of signs, that would indicate that it's becoming an issue, but mostly it's really when it becomes, it comes to a point where their home is not able to be used as intended, really starts to become prevalent.
When it's not functional and you're not able to use your kitchen sink or whatever, your bathroom
sleep in
sink,
your own bed.
Or sleep in your own bed. That's a big one. There's so much stuff. They can't sleep in their own bed, so they sleep in a chair. And when it gets to that point, then...
So for people listening, if you have a family member who might be going through this, or if you yourself are going through this, talk about the support group and the help out there.
It's great. The support group is fantastic. Like I said, people come in scared, some crying, shaking, and they love it. And they ask if they can continuously come. Even when their session ends, they say, well, can I come to the next support group? So, and they're obviously, of course, they're welcome to, but they learn why they are acquiring, or like I said about the cookbooks. I mean, they learn these things, and it's amazing, the transformation. And now they have friends for the first time in their lives. They have people that they
understand them.
Yeah, that understand them. And to me or you, maybe that we see whatever, a pair of shoes with a big hole in them, and why would you keep them? Because you can't wear them. But to them, they can fix it and they can continue to wear it, and it doesn't go to waste. And they're so concerned with waste and things going to places that are going to get used. The support groups are fantastic because they gradually get to a point where they have to bring in a few items, and then they see it's not the end of life. Once they separate with these items for a week or so, a lot of times they forget what they even brought in.
Yeah, there's a self-awareness factor that occurs that is so powerful. And as I said, the fact that so many people who have friends or family members that are dealing with hoarding disorder, they have the greatest intentions in the world. And they go and hey, I'll get in here and I'll help you clean all this stuff out. We'll just get rid of all these things and it'll be great. Well, that's not helpful.
Well, what should you do?
You need really come to a point of understanding and helping them to understand why it is. Like, what are the items that they're maintaining? What are they representing to them? And it comes from a lot of different perspectives. Some people really have that sentimental factor that, as Eva mentioned, with the cookbooks. It reminds them of someone they've lost. Others are maybe entrepreneurial at first, and they're thinking, okay, I can, maybe buy these things and sell them and make a business from it. And for whatever reason, maybe they haven't completed the circle, and maybe they're not really going to. But it's that self-awareness that needs to be, they need to find. And there are so many positive attributes that actually manifest themselves.
Like, what do you mean by that?
So, and we really try to drive this home in the support groups. Positive aspects like hyper creativity. People with hoarding disorder, not all, but a segment, are just so creative that they can see something beautiful that they can make or useful that they can make with pretty much anything. So it manifests itself out. Something that is inherently good manifests itself out into a situation that becomes a problem. As Eva mentioned, being concerned with others, that concern for others. So in our first group, I learned something from them. They were continually talking about the different options for giving things away, for donating things. And across the board, every one of them had done great research on which organizations do the most good with the things, which are truly nonprofit, who they benefit. It's very important to them who they're benefiting their fellow humans. So there are just so many positive attributes. Perfection.
That's really good to point out.
Hyper-perfection.
Yeah.
Many of them they have they're such perfectionists that if they can't determine the best thing to do with the item, they would rather just not do anything at all with it.
Still ahead on For the Record.
Once rooms are that cluttered, it's more of a danger for us because we can get lost in those rooms.
How hoarding situations create a danger for firefighters and how emergency responders are trained to help.
It was very difficult. We can't get in. We could not make entry in the house because this person has been cited several times for the hoarding.
That was last May when a hoarding situation made responding to a fire difficult for crews in Midway, Washington County. I want to continue our conversations about the issues surrounding hoarding here in the Pittsburgh region. I sit down with Pittsburgh Bureau of Fire Lieutenant Chad Horosky to learn more about how hoarding can create challenges for first responders. And we're talking about hoarding and what a danger that poses, especially for rescue personnel on the scene of maybe a fire, handling something like that. Let me ask you this. How bad of a problem do we have here in Pittsburgh with hoarding?
The problem with hoarding is it's usually a hidden problem until you really get to see it either responding there or a neighbor calls or it's reported through council. But on average, it accounts for about 2 to 6% of the population nationally, and I think Pittsburgh pretty much follows that.
How big of a problem is it when you are responding to an emergency?
Well, it's a big problem because we often don't know that there's a hoarding condition in the home. So when we do go in there, either for a medical call along with the other responders or a fire, you open the front door and you're faced with the obstacles that are in the home.
And then what do you do? How do you handle it? Because you might not realize from the outside what you're getting yourself into.
Well, unfortunately, if it's a structure fire, you have no idea because the building's usually involved in flames and smoke, so it's dark, so you don't find out until you get in there and you start stumbling over things. If there's reports of occupants in the home, it's a bigger struggle because you have to, often they're packed in a little corner of the home that they live in, and you have to try to search that out. Unfortunately, a lot of times we never get to that point and they end up passing away. If it's
Just simply because of the hoarding situation?
Yes.
They could have been saved otherwise?
Because it's so difficult to search a building with all the other clutter inside the home.
So are you trained in how to handle a situation like that? What does the training look like for the fire department?
We do a lot of maze training. We call it maze training, where we'll shut the lights off and smoke up a room or just black out our lenses, and we'll go through, and it's basically a communication skill of where you're at in the building. Once rooms are that cluttered, it's more of a danger for us because we can get lost in those rooms. We do have thermal imagers that gives us a picture within the smoke of what the room looks like. But unfortunately, once you add water to those situations, the thermal imagery usually blots out because it's a relative temperature within the room. So it just reads a temperature.
What kind of help and services do you have to offer people who might be experiencing a hoarding situation in their own lives?
Well, a lot of times when our crews encounter a hoarding situation, there's a reporting process within our bureau. And that goes up to a specific group of people, which is a high utilizer program.
High utilizer?
Yes. We will work within different agencies within the city, Area on Aging, sometimes Adult Protective Services, to try to get them the help it is. Unfortunately, hoarding's a symptom of something else. So usually there's trauma or some type of anomaly that's happened in their lives to have them hold on to those items. So it's a difficult problem to solve. The unfortunate thing about it is it affects the other property owners that are adjacent to that. So it's really a moral dilemma because you have to decide where one person's rights begin and another one's ends.
If you think that your neighbor is a hoarder and might be putting your own apartment at risk, what do you do? Do you report them? Is that even an option?
Well, again, it's back to the moral dilemma because they're existing within that for a reason. So we never want to get anybody out of their home because they're comfortable within it, but then it becomes a public health crisis sometimes because of rodents or clutter around the home or fire load. Well, Pittsburgh homes are very close together. So if their house catches on fire, maybe your house may not burn down next to it, but there'll be a significant amount of smoke damage in there. So you can contact Adult Protective Services, Area on Aging. There's different agencies within the city. You can contact the city, your council person. There's a lot of different avenues you can have, but they really need a trained person to come out there and
confront the person.
Yes.
And see if they can be helped.
Mm-hmm.
You were saying that a lot of hoarding symptoms begin in teenage years, but people don't often seek the help they need until they're in their 50s. And that's a lifetime of a struggle of someone living with this issue. What advice do you have for people watching this who might be feeling like they're getting mixed up in that type of dilemma?
Well, according to the CDC, hoarding usually starts around 2% of it's right around 19 years of age. And then the older we get, it ramps up to about 6% of the population. You can conclude that it's a lifetime of people not getting help and it just gets worse. So the best thing you can do is get therapy, talk about a lot of the issues that you may be experiencing in your home or in your life in a relationship. Maybe there's a loved one that was recently lost. Things manifest in different ways, but mental health is stigmatized in our society, and it's really a good thing. And people need to really address some of the issues that are happening because hoarding. Simply hoarding is you're hoarding a lot of emotions and trauma that's experienced in your life, unless there's a clinical component to it, and it's manifesting in another segment of your life, which would be hoarding and holding on to things.
And when you're talking about things, it's not just something that is maybe legitimate in terms of something that's been passed down in your family. It's objects that most of us would think would be something we could just easily get rid of. But people who suffer with this problem want to hold on to everything.
Yeah,
and it's hard to understand.
It's something to control in their life often. There's a lot of other, there's compulsion disorders and things like that. But a lot of times people find comfort. It's a comfort thing for them. So it's something they can control in their life and they're comfortable within that environment. So it could be something as simple as saving newspapers, for the past 20 years, or maybe grocery store bags, or some type of remembrance that you did something with with a loved one, or something that gave you comfort when you were younger, and you'll attach to those items and just start saving those. And then
I think it's important for all of us to realize that that is the case, because I think the first inclination would be to go rent a dumpster, help this person clean out what you, in your opinion, isn't needed, but that doesn't always solve the problem.
No, not at all. It's the hoarding's a symptom of something else, and they do need professional help to address those issues. So, often people will clean up the homes and then the hoarding just starts back up over again. So there's a lot of other underlying issues in there that need to be addressed.
Still ahead.
The first step is really accepting and acknowledging that you have an issue with excessive acquiring.
The conversation continues. What you can expect to see in next week's edition of For the Record. And don't forget, you can catch up on recent episodes of For the Record, including last week's edition focused on New Year's resolutions, by heading over to the WTA.com homepage or the WTAE app. You will find a full list of our recent shows under the For the Record tab. We're back after this.